The NBA Finals are finally here. One of the longest droughts in NBA history is coming to an end. Two unlikely teams formed after the NBA expansion in 1968 have an opportunity to win the NBA championships. The Milwaukee Bucks haven't won a title since 1971. The Phoenix Suns have never won the title. Got lots to talk about on today's let's get started. We have the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks in the final, and if you told me this at the start of the season, I'd be surprised if you told me the Phoenix Suns were coming to the final.
Bucks maybe. Yeah.
The Bucks, I would have thought maybe, but if you told me the Bucks reached the final after Giannis missing 2.5 conference final games, then I'd be surprised. Well, you have the Phoenix Suns in the finals. Chris Paul has just transformed this team into a monster, and the Milwaukee Bucks seem to be playing amazing even without Giannis. So well deserved, I would say. Both these teams have met twice in the regular season. The Phoenix Suns coming out victorious in both the occasions, both of those going to the last position. One of them literally in the last position, and the other one decided in extra time after a ridiculous referee call. PJ Tucker called for a foul on Booker on the last shot, and then he had free throws to convert. It was ridiculous. But before we even get there, Phoenix Suns, Milwaukee Bucks, I should have bet $1,000 on this. I would have become a millionaire by now. Great series to end it all as well. The Phoenix Suns overcoming the previous champions, LA Lakers, overcoming the previous Western Conference finalists, Denver Nuggets, overcoming the prohibitive favorites after the Lakers got knocked out, the Clippers as well. So they had a tough road to get here, but they did that pretty comfortably. They didn't lose a lot of games. They beat the Clippers in 6, they beat the Denver Nuggets, they swept the Nuggets, and they beat the Lakers in 6 after Anthony Davis went out. Milwaukee Bucks though, they beat Brooklyn Nets. I think that was the biggest challenge in 7, the 7th game at Brooklyn. I wouldn't have guessed that because, well, it's Brooklyn. You have KD and Kyrie and Harden and all of these guys, and to beat them in Brooklyn, amazing job. Beating Atlanta Hawks, I would say, is a little more expected than that, but with Giannis going down, it didn't look as easy. It wasn't as easy as it should have been. What are your thoughts on this final?
Yeah, the Hawks just ran out of juice, I thought, and the Brooklyn Nets. You're right. Tough to fancy the Bucks against them with KD, Kyrie, and Harden. Except they didn't have all of them. Kyrie went down pretty early. Harden was out for a bit, came back quite a hiatus, and then he came back not entirely fit, not even close to being his best at his match fitness best. Excuse me. So they kind of got lucky there. I think the other factor there was that troubled some people was it took them 7 games to overcome that Nets team, where it was one guy. It was just KD and some support here and there. Yes, he had shooting, but ultimately even that in 7 games came down to KD's fatigue, leading to some bad shot selection towards the end, forcing up some shots where there was time because there's just no juice left in the offense. And all of those things wouldn't have happened had it been and it took all of that to happen for the Bucks to grab that win. So they didn't get here in the most convincing of fashions, but the Atlanta Hawks series is interesting, right? Because the Hawks gave them a shock early on, and that kind of jolted the Bucks to wake up. They came roaring back, took 2 games with convincing ease, demolished the Hawks. Then game 4, Trae Young is ruled out for that game. And the Bucks do the most unchampion-like thing ever. They came out chilling. Now, normally when the best player goes down in the other team, you just put them to the sword, finish the game. Finish the game early so you can rest your players in the second half, and then it's just rotation after that. Because if there's a big lead, Hawks are not going to try and fight back. They'll conserve energy for the next game and go for a Hail Mary. They didn't do that. They let slip. And the Hawks really punished them in that first half, and then they tried too hard, but it was already a very wide gap, and then Giannis goes down and things look like they're headed south, except then they come roaring back without Giannis, the Bucks, and do what they should have done in game 4, and they finish the series in games 5 and 6. Now, one way of looking at it is they won it despite Giannis going down. The alternative sort of devil's advocate approach is, did they play that way and did they play that fluid basketball style because Giannis wasn't on the court? Are they trapped in a system where they have a player who's light years ahead of anyone else on that squad, and so you're obligated to feed him the same way you were obligated to feed, say, a Shaq? Difference is Giannis isn't quite Shaq. He doesn't put up those kind of numbers yet. At the level where despite being a liability at the free throw line and having no outside shot or any kind of shot really outside the paint, you'd still be a Finals MVP caliber player, right? So Giannis isn't quite Shaq. He's almost there, but he isn't quite there. And to back that up, he doesn't have a Kobe. He has Middleton, who's good, but he doesn't have a Kobe. So then, does this style work? Were they better off without Giannis in those games because it opened up the floor for them? They were able to. Jrue Holiday, I thought, had an excellent game. Or was it just that it's coincidence that Holiday stepped up and it doesn't really have much to do with Giannis? I think that points can be argued either way. But I think it gave them an interesting angle, if nothing else, than to help formulate a quarter four or a closing minutes game plan of how to go about their offense and not just be very predictable in terms of give Giannis the ball, he'll skip 3 steps back to try and create a runway to come in, and then it's all very predictable. And the Suns can throw a few bodies at him. Aiton's formidable. I think they'll throw Crowder at him at some point in the series. So I think it gave them some really interesting tips on how to approach those finishing moments. Put Jrue and Middleton and in charge and put the ball in their hands. But all in all, I think anyone who's supporting the Bucks would do well not to underestimate the Suns. I think they have the better offense of the two. 4 quarters over a 7-game series. I think they have the better offense. They have more folks that are capable of bringing in those winning mentality players. Chris Paul's ruthless. Devin Booker's fearless. I think they're in the right place. So
Right.
They do well not to underestimate the Suns. I still kind of favor the Bucks, but the Suns are no joke, man. They could easily end up champions.
Totally. I mean, I love the storylines for both these teams. If you think of the Bucks 2 years ago, Giannis becoming a big star, winning the MVP in the Eastern Conference Final, leading 2-0, moments away from going 3-0 up against the Toronto Raptors. Somehow Kawhi and the Raptors pull that off, and then the Bucks lose three consecutive games. So they've crashed and burned. They've been there.
Right.
Last season in the bubble, they're doing well. Met the most, I think, the worst matchup possible for them. They met Miami Heat and got thrashed by the Miami Heat. If it was the other conference, right? I mean, if it was the other 2 teams, the Boston Celtics or the Toronto Raptors, they had a horrible match, a 7-game series, if you remember, where both teams couldn't make shots. If it was either of those teams, Milwaukee Bucks were just thrashing them and going into the finals, and then, anything could have happened.
Right.
They met the worst possible matchup. Miami Heat, it was the 5th seed Miami Heat, and the Bucks had qualified as the 1st seed. So that was an unlikely matchup, and they crashed and burned. This year, they were less likely favored, I would say. The Sixers were more ahead of them in the favorite standings. The Brooklyn Nets were definitely ahead of them. And now they're here when they're less favored. I think they've seen it all. They've crashed and burnt a few times. That kind of sets them up for becoming the champions, right? It's usually the storyline where you lose a couple of times. You've seen it all. You've shed those tears. And then you eventually rise to the occasion. Phoenix Suns, meanwhile, are the first timers here. They're the baby team. Nobody really expected them to be there. Nobody expected them to beat the Lakers. The Nuggets probably was a close matchup. They thrashed them. The Clippers were the favorites against the Suns. So they've always been the underdogs in their series. They've been here. This was a team that was 26-39 last season before the bubble started. And campaign was playing in China. Chris Paul was playing in OKC. Booker continued disrespect, right? Not being picked for the All-Star teams. Never really considered a big star.
Yeah.
Ayton was just mocked as being the number 1 draft pick when Luka was available or Trae Young was available. So the Suns have seen it all as well. It's a nice storyline of these 2 unlikely teams meeting in the final. And one thing I read which kind of surprised me was these 2 teams have a history. Both were formed during the 1968 expansion of the NBA.
Yeah.
And they had a draft pick, Lou Alcindor. The Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he went to the Milwaukee Bucks on the virtue of a coin toss. And that kind of changed history because the Bucks won the title 3 years later, made the finals in 74 as well, whereas the Phoenix Suns had to wait a long time until they made the finals. They made the finals once against the Celtics in 1976 and during the Barkley era in 1993. And this is the 3rd final, was first after 28 years. So nice storylines. I like this storylines to teams that, I mean, it's tough to root for one or pick one over the other, I would say.
Yeah, it just feels like the Bucks have paid their dues, sort of. They've
Exactly.
almost there, close enough. They finally get over the hump. They take down. And also, why were Philly favored slightly more than the Bucks was because they were making all the right noise. Simmons was playing really well, DPOY candidate. Embiid at the start was a favorite for MVP before he missed a bunch of games. And they had Doc Rivers, championship caliber coach, despite 2-3-1 leads. And they made all the right noises, all the right moves. They got in Dwight Howard to kind of bolster that big man department. They got in some shooting. They got in Seth Curry. They got in Danny Green, who can also defend 3-and-D. They added a lot of interesting pieces and some squad depth. And so they were favored more. Whereas with Milwaukee, it seemed like everything was going wrong. Initially, there was uncertainty around Giannis. There was enough rumors and gossip mongering that was going on, despite the Supermax being pretty much a sure thing.
Yep.
And then there was that whole botched trade of Bogdanovic, who ultimately went to Atlanta. Could have cost them dearly, but it didn't. And there was all of that. So it felt a lot like, where's this franchise headed until they got Jrue Holiday, and you thought, okay, maybe, but they still need Bogdanovic. They could have used Bogdanovic. And then they started off. Now then the regular season starts, and now the Bucks are playing really well. But then you've seen this so many times that at this point nobody cares. They get to the finals, then show us something. And they did. So it feels like this team has been through a lot, paid their dues. Doesn't quite still feel like a championship caliber team. I don't know what it is. There's still something missing, because I think they're still a lot more vulnerable than a championship favorite is. I think it's down to that. And because their alpha is a lot more vulnerable than a typical superstar is. This is a guard heavy league now. You've got forwards that can pull up from anywhere. So Giannis is a bit of an abnormality, an anomaly in the fabric of the sport. Suns, on the other hand, that's a fairy tale story. That's one step above the Atlanta Hawks. The Suns getting this far. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they don't deserve to be there. They do, but the curve went up so steeply from the point Chris Paul arrived, that it just feels like we weren't ready to process all this. Like the Bucks, we've seen them gradually inch closer and closer. Suns just rocketed to the top, and it wasn't like they put together like the Lakers did last season, right? You slap together AD and LeBron, and you expect them to demolish most teams. It wasn't like that. When Chris Paul went there, I was one of the guys that said, why Phoenix? Towards the end of his career, shouldn't he be going to a place where he can almost guarantee himself a chip and be a key player in that chip winning squad, like say the Clippers? Of course, he wasn't going to go back to the Clippers, but something like that. I was quite surprised. Like, why is he going to this dead-end development project where he can help Booker grow, and that's about it? And what's he going to do? Hasn't he done that already at OKC? Nobody thought this team would be this team the way they are now. Nobody thought Mikal Bridges would evolve so much. Nobody thought till the playoffs, nobody even knew Campaign really well. And Ayton's been a revelation this season. So it's good. One interesting thing though, I don't think Ayton's been tested yet in this. I don't think he's faced any tough opposition consistently. He faced Jokic, but that was a depleted team, and whenever Jokic wanted to, he did get the better of Ayton. He faced AD only really for 3 games. Game 1, I thought Ayton did very well. Game 2 and 3, AD came back, demolished Ayton. And then AD went down as he does, and that was that. In the finals, not really a challenge. There was really no one on the Clippers that was even a proper 5. Ibaka was injured, Zubats was in and out, and Marcus Morris, I think, was their best bet. Or Batum, right? So he hasn't really faced a stiff test. I think Brook Lopez, if they use him the way they did in the conference finals, can be a handful. That is in the paint, being a presence. And then God bless Ayton trying to stop Giannis driving down. Right. My only question is, how do they stop Giannis? Who's that wall going to be comprised of?
Someone who has the experience of doing that, Jay Crowder.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So they'll have to throw Crowder at Giannis. Between these two guys, it's going to be interesting, because that's about it. I can't really think of anyone else that has the muscle to really put the stop on Giannis.
Absolutely. You spoke about paying dues, right? You said the Bucks have paid their dues and they're finally here. Don't you think Chris Paul has paid more than a share of dues to be here? I was looking at his career record and I was wondering, why has he never reached the finals? What has gone wrong every single time? And if I list out the facts, it's crazy, because 2007 and 8, this was his 3rd season in the NBA. He put a triple-double and beat the Mavs, who were highly favored to win. They got demolished by Spurs. All right. It's first time in the playoffs. All right. That happens. 2008-9, he was not 100% fit during the first round loss against Spurs again. 2010, the second best player in the New Orleans Hornets, then David West, tore an ACL just before the first round playoff game against the Lakers. They got thrashed. Obviously, you can't do it. You can't beat Kobe, and that Lakers squad all alone, so Chris Paul went out. Then he moved to the Clippers,
Yeah, he had
where
like,
they
no
were one
support
of the
back then.
yeah. Then he moved to the Clippers, where he had more than enough support with Blake Griffin and Ibaka and not Ibaka. Who was the other guy? I kind
They
of
had
forget
Blake
his name.
Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, they had Jamal
DeAndre
Crawford
Jordan,
on the
yeah.
bench.
Exactly.
They had shooting too. I think was this when Austin Rivers? Yeah, Austin Rivers was in the Clippers also. So
Yeah. That was a very entertaining team, but highly underperformed in the playoffs whenever the playoffs arrived. They were really entertaining to watch, one of the most entertaining teams ever put together with the high-flying Blake Griffin and Chris Paul feeding him. They got swept in 2013. Well, all right, first year, you'll see, it's like the Bucks, right? I mean, we'll see. This is a team for the future.
he should have had a ring that year. That was the year his trade to the Lakers got vetoed.
Yes, exactly. Then 2014, Blake Griffin gets injured before the playoffs, and then Chris Paul blew a 7-point lead with 49 seconds left against the OKC. The worst possible turnover in history, with the Clippers leading by 2, 49 seconds left. Chris Paul tries to get a 3-point play by just throwing a 75-point shot, 75-foot yard shot, and then trying to get the foul, but Russell Westbrook gets the steal, and then Chris Paul after the basket again fouls him on a 3, and then Chris Paul literally throws the game away by himself. That was his one moment where I think he himself threw the game away, but everywhere else. 2015, Doc Rivers turns up, 3-1 lead against the Rockets, they get thrashed. 2016, CP3 is injured, Blake Griffin is injured, Clippers have no chance. 2018, he moves to the Rockets, leads the Warriors 3-2 in the final, and then Chris Paul gets injured, and then they lose the rest too. So every single time that he's reached the playoffs, something or the other has happened. Either the second best player has got injured, or he himself has got injured, or the one occasion where he just threw it away himself. So finally, I think he's paid more than a share of dues. It's his occasion. He's been here. And you could see that in game 6 against the Clippers, right? He was like, no way I'm losing this game. I've been here way too many times. I'm taking control.
Yeah,
Went
it
on a
almost-
rampage, scored 41 points.
It almost happened this time too, right? He got COVID in the middle of the in the most clutch time of the
Multiple times, if you think of it, in the series against Lakers, he got injured. In the series before the series was the Clippers, he got COVID and then missed a bunch of games. And you thought, oh, Chris Paul yet again. He fell down again after a collision with Pat Beverly during the series, and you're like, Chris Paul again. So 3 times at least I could think of where he could have gone down, and it could have been yet again for Chris Paul. But I think he's very determined this time to not let this okay.
No, sure, but I think the biggest difference is the Bucks as a franchise have paid feels like they've paid their dues, and it's a team that has consistently been building up, then failure at some level, then come back to the drawing board, build, fail, and improve. They did have some 1 step forward, 2 steps back situations, but on the whole, they've made some steady progress. Versus Chris Paul, it's more of an individual thing. The Suns org as such, other than acquiring Chris Paul, it's not like they've come, failed, tried, failed. They did it a while ago with D'Antoni and Steve Nash and all those guys, Marion, but not in the modern era. So that's one. It's one individual who's paid his dues, not the team. And but on the other hand, it's the team. Secondly, Milwaukee, they were hot favorites to come out of the East for a couple of seasons, and they disappointed. And they had the league MVP. Chris Paul is never in that level of a scenario. I'm sure the Clippers were fancied to win the title, but anyone who knew basketball was always asking, this Lob City stuff is great. What are they going to do in the playoffs? It's not going to be this high tempo. You won't get as many transition opportunities. You might in the first round, but that's about it. What happens when the game slows down? Chris Paul can handle it, but can the other guys? Chris Paul handle it. He's the guy that's slowing it down most of the time, but can the other guys keep up? And I remember someone said this about Blake Griffin when he came into the league. First season, he was in the All-Star game. And he won the dunk contest that year. And somebody threw up a lob in the Western Conference, Kobe or Westbrook. Somebody threw up a lob and Griffin finished it easy. This was high-flying Blake Griffin, first season in the league after 1 year out with injury. And the commentator said, this guy's so freakishly athletic. You know what will be really scary? Right now he plays at 100 miles per hour all the time. What will be really scary is when he learns to slow the game down and control the pace of the game and not be so frenetic all the time. But as it turns out, he didn't learn that very well for a long time. Certainly not enough to carry that team through. And so Chris Paul again had no support. Chris Paul was robbed of at least one ring. You're seeing, I think I said this before, you're seeing what he can do with a Devin Booker. Imagine the same player, a couple of inches taller, a little better skill set, and a way better mindset. And that's no disrespect to Booker, that's just Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant in 2012, old as he was, this was pre-injury, that's it. We won't see the same Kobe anymore. Kobe. So that was probably their last chance. But it'll be a good storyline. Chris Paul's legacy versus whatever it is that the Bucks are doing. Because I do admit, the Phoenix Suns winning would make a more compelling, okay, this makes sense kind of arc than the Bucks. It just feels like the Bucks have just hacked their way through a dead fish, while Phoenix have like carved it MasterChef style. There's a method to it. There's finesse. It just feels like the Bucks have just hacked their way through to the bone of the fish.
Totally agree. Before we move on, one final thing on the series. What's your pick? What's your prediction? How long is the series going to go, and who is your pick?
This might go 7 games, man. I'm going to put this in the video. I think this will go 7 games. If it doesn't, I think the Bucks are going to win it in a hurry. If the Phoenix Suns come back, I think it'll go 7 games. This is such a tough one to call, though. Usually, I am high on conviction when it comes to these matchups, but there's so many imperfections that it's almost tough to divide them. I think the Suns are better coached for sure.
Right.
I think they have better finishing. So then it's going to come down to 2 things. How aggressive can the Bucks be right at the start? They have a problem there. Phoenix are really good at that too.
Yep.
They're really good at just 0 to 100 straight from tip off. They're damn good at that. So then 2 critical things for Milwaukee to clinch this. Phoenix just have to play the same game they've played all through the playoffs. They've made adjustments and all that, but their style, the motif has been the same thing. Attack, go aggressive, take the lead, defend as a unit, 2-3 zone, blah, 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 get the win. For Bucks to win, 2 critical elements, other than all of the obvious stuff like Middleton has to shoot well in the 4th and Giannis has to be Giannis and all that, is their defense. That's where I think they're significantly superior to the Phoenix Suns. I think they have a much better defense. And so in Jrue Holiday and Giannis alone, they have like 2 DPOY, perennial all defensive first team kind of players. So they have a much better defense. That's got to click. And no cheap points, right? If Booker drops 35 on you, you live with it. If Chris Paul drops 30 plus, you live with it. If Ayton's getting 20 plus a night, consistently 15 plus rebounds, you have a problem. That shouldn't be happening. Yep. Shut down Ayton, shut down the other guys. So that's 1, their defense. 2, their outside scoring. And it shouldn't be coming from Brook Lopez and Giannis. I don't get why they jack up so many threes. It doesn't work. It's not very high percentage. Sure, if they get an open 3, nobody's around them, take it. But don't pull up just for the heck of it. Bring in Bryn Forbes, bring in Connaughton, involve Middleton. Jrue Holiday, I thought, found his shooting touch back a bit. So their outside scoring, if they can create an edge in that and in defense, I think they're well set.
All right. I'm on the same page as you. I really don't know which way the series will go. Especially we don't know which form of Giannis will get, right? An injured Giannis who really can't do much, or will we get back the pre-injury Giannis, who he means that he will just wreck through the Phoenix defense and just go and get those points in the paint. Yeah, if that is the case, I would pick Bucks probably in 5 or 6. But without Giannis or a half-fit Giannis, I think Phoenix Suns are favorites.
Yeah.
And I think they should win this pretty comfortably, just because without Giannis, I don't think this Bucks team have enough in their tank to take on that Phoenix Suns, who are well-rounded. They have the depth as well. When Booker is out, Chris Paul is sitting. You have Campaign, Cam Johnson, everyone. Torrey Craig, who's assured of a medal, he's been amazing in the last few games as well. So I would pick the Phoenix Suns probably in 6.
They could even live without Giannis's offense. I don't think they can live without Giannis's defense. That's the key.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting one. We'll come back and talk about it tomorrow. The first game's tonight. I'm all excited. Looking forward to this, and I'll catch you tomorrow.
All right, man. Peace.
See ya. Bye.